people, they don't realize that it's not just a crime that has got a person incarcerated. The first crime was the trauma that was inflicted on them. That's the first crime. And unfortunately, my birth mom had a lot of crime inflicted on her of going.
Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Sharika. My name is Sharika Swedi, also known as the Mind Reset Strategist. I am a certified life coach, a published author, and of course the host of this show. You can also call me if you have a speaking gig. Okay, so today's guest is yet another phenomenal woman, right? She has a Bachelor's of Arts degree in radio, television, and film with a minor in theater, right? And then she has a Master of Arts degree in marriage, family therapy, and Christian counseling. She is a life coach, an ordained minister, a motivational speaker. She's been awarded by multiple organizations such as YMCA and the NBA's Oklahoma City Thunder Change Makers. Premadonna Braddick, welcome to Conversations with Sharika.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. So great to be here. This is great.
Yep, it's an absolute pleasure to have you as well. And let's jump right into it. My first question is, what's up with the name, Premadonna?
It is definitely an icebreaker, right?
It is.
Oh, yes, Premadonna. Wow. Okay. The story I was told by my grandmother, who named me,
Okay.
mentioned to me that she was watching a movie and the father had terminal cancer, but he would always take his daughter to ballet, and he would call his daughter his little prima donna. He said, "This is my little prima donna." And he had been doing that ever since she was little, and as years went on, I think he caught terminal cancer later, like when she was in high school. And he just continued to say, "You're my prima donna." And he said, "When you graduate from high school, I'm going to send you just a dozen of roses because I love my prima donna." And my grandmother's telling me the story, and as she's telling me the story, she's just crying, and I'm just like, wow, that must have been a really good movie. And she said, yeah. And I said, well, did she ever get the flowers? She said, yeah, she got her roses and everything. I said, oh, Father was so good on his promise. She said, yes, but he had passed away. So by then waterfalls are coming down. He said, but she had sent in the order because he knew he wasn't going to make it to see her graduate. So he sent in the order and gave her her flowers. And she looked over at my mom and said, if you have a daughter, please. No, she knew she was having a daughter. She said, I know you're having a daughter. Please name her Premadonna. So, and in Italian, it means first lady. So I know in America, it means someone who has to have their way and all that. But I think everybody has a little Premadonna in them. But in Italian, it actually means first lady, which meant a lot to me. Especially, I know the topic we're discussing is me being in a foster care system, especially when you don't ever feel like you're the first of anything. And when I later found out about that story, because the story behind that is no one called me Premadonna growing up. I was called something else. They called me Charmaine. And I didn't know that was my name till later on. And then the Holy Spirit was telling me, you need to change your name, like not change your name, but go to the name that was originally yours. And then a name that was originally mine meant first lady because I was always first in God's eyes. So, yeah.
My God, that's an amazing story. I'm so glad I asked. That's beautiful. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. All right. Okay. So, as you mentioned earlier, you were a child between the ages of 2 and 18 years old. You were in the foster care system. And I just heard you mention that you had a grandma, you have a grandmother, or you had a grandmother, and your mom was around. So what were the circumstances that led to you being in the foster care system?
Yes. Okay. My grandmother told me that story. I was by then in college and was reunited. Well, I got a chance to know who my parents were, was at the time the state allowed me to visit with my family. I ended up in the foster care system because both of my parents were heavy drug addicts. My mom, from what my dad told me, his story, he said she was so strung off on drugs that she abandoned me at the Jack in the Box restaurant at age 2, and she left me so she can get high. And then that's where I was put in state custody. My father found out about it. They was not going to release me to him because he had such a long history of criminal records. I'm crying, I'm screaming for him. He said he wanted to grab me, but he knew it wasn't the right thing to do, and that's how I ended up in the system, because she was on drugs. And he was on drugs too. But yeah, it was just a really bad situation. However, I was able to visit my family. They allowed my birth mom visitations, and I would visit her from time to time.
Okay, so there was always some kind of connection between you and your family. Okay, that's good. That's good. Where was your grandmother at this time?
Well, my grandmother, so the history is really big. Grandma was on drugs too. My whole family is a history of drugs, and hear about their generational curses. I call it generational pattern. And so there was nowhere I could have gone. Sadly to say, my grandmother didn't raise any of her kids. She had, I think, about 6, and then the 7th one, she just gave it to a friend. She didn't know how to be a mom. So there's the history that starts there of abandonment. My grandmother, talking to her mother abandoned her. I think she was probably around 8, 7, 9, one of the impressionable ages. And she didn't know what it was like having a mom, being raised by a mom. She started having all these kids. She didn't raise the kids. She just dropped them off at her sister-in-law's house. And she was on the road. She was a singer. She was an entertainer. And she, did drugs also. She was on heroin, and she wasn't in a good place. And that story I told you, they were both in Santa Rita jail when they were watching that movie. My mom and my grandmother were both in Santa Rita jail. They had a habit of stealing, and back then they called it boosting. I don't know if they still call it boosting now, but they call it boosting. Well, it was a time where my grandma she's from Louisiana, and she came to California. My mom brought her back to California to try to get me back to live with her. I call my grandmother my angel because she quickly saw that my birth mother was not in a position to raise me. She was still on drugs. She didn't keep a clean house. She was just not in a position to raise me. And it was all about the money, to get more state money in the state and food stamps and everything. I was just a dollar sign to her. And my grandmother stepped in and said, "Listen, Brenda," that's my birth mother, saying, "I'm not going to help you get Premadonna back. She's better off where she is. And you're going to ruin her life." And I thank God for that, because honestly, she would have. I mean, my mother, Brenda, would have ruined my life, because she's never just been stable. I remember growing up, she was always moving, or she got evicted, or it was roaches, it was bed bugs. Me not being raised by her was the best ever. I wouldn't be the woman I am today. I don't have any ill feelings against her. She was just a broken person in a grown woman's body, a broken girl in a grown woman's body.
Wow, that's amazing. That makes you a miracle.
Absolutely.
That makes you a miracle, because you could have ended up in jail, stealing, on drugs, all of that, and you escaped.
Yeah, that's the one thing with my nonprofit, Soaring Eagles Youth and Family Services. Our mission, in short, is helping youth and families rewrite their stories so they can live a successful and rewarding life, as I rewrote my story. People, they don't realize that it's not just a crime that has got a person incarcerated. The first crime was the trauma that was inflicted on them. That's the first crime. And unfortunately, my birth mom had a lot of crime inflicted on her of going through abuse herself from my great aunt, my great aunt, who inflicted pain and abuse on her. She didn't, dealt with the abandonment of her mom. She didn't know what it looked like being a mom. She didn't know. And again, I don't hold any of that against her. I thank God for having his hands on my life. Even though I went through some, abuse in the foster home I was in, if I had to pick between the two, and where I was a better place. Because my foster dad had family that truly loved me. They didn't know what was going on with my foster mother, what she was doing. They didn't know what she was doing until I later came out, and they were really upset to know how she was treating me. Some things you just keep, because I knew I had nowhere else to go if I said anything. And I had a very loving foster father. And so I pretty much just kept everything inside, because I didn't want to leave at home, because I knew there were no other place for me to go, even though there was abuse and verbal abuse and physical abuse inflicted on me by my foster mother. And she too had an orphan's heart. Her mom died when she was 6, her father died when she was 8. And she was raised by a very strict grandmother. She was raised during the Jim Crow laws. She was born in 1932, I think. 1932. And at that time, they didn't have counseling. They didn't have all that, they have now. And so she had me at a later age, and she got me at a later age. Only parent me of how she was parent. So God, as you can see, God took me to some serious healing rooms to help me, and he healed the stuff that was going on with my foster mother and my birth mother.
Right. Well, you said that you didn't say anything because you knew that where the options were not going to be better, right? So if you were to imagine that you had to go back to your mom, say you had reported your stepmother and you had to go back to be with your mom, what do you think that would have been like?
Horrible. It would have been horrible. We never had a good relationship. Ever had a good relationship.
Yeah.
Till this day, unfortunately, we have a very fractured relationship, even till this day. It's just, we've never, and it started, the trauma for me started in the womb, when I was in her womb. She used every imaginable drugs there was, cocktail of drugs. And she said I was bouncing the whole night, and she thought she was miscarrying me. And that's a time when a mother is pregnant with their first child. That was her first child. You're bonding with them. You're doing all these things. And I never had that bonding with her. When she first had me, she had to finish her time in jail because she was boosting, stealing. Eric Erickson came out with 8 stages of development. And then the first stage of development is trust versus mistrust. He postulated 8 stages of development that humanity goes through. And the first one is trust versus mistrust. And that's where you find nurturing with your mom, you find safety with that caregiver, whomever that is, you find safety with them. And I never found safety with my birth mom, and why we've had such a tumultuous relationship, fractured relationship. Didn't trust people. It was hard for me to trust people, and then going back to that, I understood why I just didn't have a lot of trust for people. Unfortunately, my birth mother and I do not talk. It got so bad because, unfortunately, she repeated what her mother did to her, and her mother, unfortunately, was very verbally abusive. There's times I can remember I would stand up for my mom, because I couldn't understand why she was just so evil towards her daughter. And my birth mother, she kissed and loved the ground she walked on. She kissed the ground she walked on and everything, and she just treated us so bad. And my birth mom, Brenda, has since then repeated that pattern. But I said, no, it stops with me. It's not, do not have permission to abuse me and verbally abuse me. So I have a protective order against her because of the text messages and the horrible things she said. I can't even repeat the things that she said. So yeah, that was a struggle growing up, not having a mom. The foster mother I had was verbally abusive towards me until told me I was dumb and stupid because I had a speech impediment due to the trauma I endured as a young girl.
Yeah.
And then I had a learning disability because of the cocktail of drugs that my mother induced when she was pregnant with me. Learning has always been very difficult for me. I never used it as a crutch. I just had to find different ways to comprehend and understand things. And constantly, I told myself I will always remain a student and continue to keep exercising my brain.
Right. That's amazing, and I'm glad. You see, I think we're in that age now where we're breaking those cycles of grandma, great grandma did it this way, grandma did it this way, mom did it this way, and I think this generation that the generation that we're in now, I think those barriers are breaking down because I wasn't in the foster care system, but my mom, my grandmother, was verbally abusive to my mom. And there were times when my mom was verbally abusive to me. And now I have a daughter and I would never abuse her like that. So I think there's some waking up happening, but healing is necessary in order for us to break those ties and create change. I am glad to know that you're sitting in front of me despite all that you went through. How long were you in the system for before you were placed with a foster family? Do you know?
Well, I was bounced from different foster homes.
Okay.
I just bounced from different foster homes. And then I arrived in my one foster home at age 5 and stayed there until 18. I aged out. They never adopted me.
Okay.
So I ended up aging out. But that's where I remained, and I ended up aging out and never got adopted. And come to find out, my foster dad wanted to adopt me, but my foster mother didn't. It's weird. And his side of the family were a little bit disturbed by that because, again, that's the Mackle side of the family who I love dearly. They never treated me like I was a foster kid. I've been with the family for so long.
Yeah.
They always just loved me. I mean, and that's when people ask me, what kept you going? And I would have to honestly say it was my dad's side of the family. My foster dad, I don't like to call him my foster dad because he's my dad. He raised me.
Right.
His side of the family gave me hope because they just loved on me. This is my niece. They called me Charmaine. They don't nobody called me Premadonna. They called me Charmaine. Like, this is my niece, Charmaine. And so my aunts and uncles, even my uncle, him and his wife never had children, and I was in his will, and along with my other cousins. And even when I do say that I'm in a foster, grew up in a foster home, my family look at me like, "Girl, you family? What you talking about?" So. And I have 2 cousins who were adopted. I have 3 cousins who were adopted. So it's not very uncommon in our family, the Mackles, I should say, the side of the family.
Right.
But they're the ones that gave me the strength and hope in my darkest hours and times, because they were consistent with their love and acceptance. They were always, I never ever felt like on that side of the family that I was different. I just felt different when I was with my foster mother. She made me feel that way, but never on my dad's side of the family. They were just always accepting.
Right. That's good. I'm glad you had that. And it's a good thing you had that, or you probably wouldn't have made it. Because we all need somebody, right? We all need that little place where we can trust. What was school like for you? Was that difficult? Well, outside of the learning challenges, did you have to contend with peer pressure or being bullied or anything like that?
Yeah, I was bullied because of my speech impediment in elementary. I was bullied in a sense. I don't think I was harshly, but I had sometimes in schools, I was bullied. I think more in elementary. Then I stood up to my bully in junior high. But I don't think I was like the popular kid. No, I mean, I was into arts. I was very much so into arts. I was into acting, so everybody knew me as the actress, the actor of the school in high school.
Right.
But I wasn't like the popular girl. I had my things I went through, my growth spurts and different, acne, being skinny, and just, I wasn't, oh no, I wasn't like the first girl that the guys would ask out or anything. But, as far as my learning disability, I always purpose myself to be around some smart folks. So I was able to get through. My best friend, who has her doctorate degree, Nicole, she has her doctorate degree now, and she's a chemist, medicinal chemistry. That makes my head hurt. And she's a professor at San Francisco State. She never, treated me any differently or anything like that. And she's like, I didn't know you had a learning disability. I say, that's right, because I hung around smart people like y'all. So I just knew, I love learning. I have to say that I've always loved learning, and I would always read. And just be around a lot of wise people. I would always be around much older people, because I just really, it was like a sponge. I just wanted to take in everything that they shared with me.
Okay. And where's your mom today and your dad?
Where's my what?
Your mom and dad today. Your
birth.
Yes.
So, like I told you, my birth mother, she's in California, and there's no conversation, there's no communication, but protective order against her. And my father, my birth father, sadly, he passed away in December. He was battling with a stroke. He had a stroke for many years. And hey, Athena, that's my girl Athena joined us. Hey, girl. He had a stroke, and this is the thing, I'm very spiritual. My faith in God is very strong. It always has. It's my anchor. It's what kept my mind in the right place of everything I've gone through. And last year, I had not talked to my dad in like 10 years. Like, both sides of the family is just dysfunction. Just, my dad had a bunch of kids. And so some of them, just dysfunction and just, not my cup of tea.
Right.
Some of them, not my cup of tea. I don't like ignorance. I don't like drama. I don't like none of that. I've created my life to be drama free. And I had not talked to him because of just some craziness. Like, you know what, I'm good. So the Holy Spirit kept dealing with me since the first part of January that I needed to go see my father. And I'm like, Lord, I hadn't talked to him in 10 years, since 2011. He said, you need to go see your father. And I start making phone calls, and I said, oh, I have his best friend's number, who I call Uncle Tom. So I called Uncle Tom. I said, hey, I'm looking for Campy. That's what we called him, Campy, because he was out there on the streets too. Right? So his street name was Campy. And so I said, hey, I'm looking for Campy. Do you know where Campy is? He said, oh yeah, he's with my younger half sister. And so he said, yeah, but he got that cancer, that prostate cancer. I said, what? He said, I don't know how long he has. And I was like, wow, that's why the Holy Spirit was telling me I needed to go see him. And I stopped everything. I had a radio show at the time. I was just doing so much, and I just stopped everything. And I went out there to go see him. I got contact with him. I ended up getting contact with my older brother, his first son, his first child. I got in contact with him. And so, and went out and saw him. It was in March. I saw him in March. And I'm glad I did, because that was last year, and 2021, because in December he transitioned. So I'm so glad. Hi, baby. That's my goddaughter, Sierra. Hi, baby. I was so glad I listened to the Holy Spirit and I saw him. But yeah, my faith is really strong. I work heavily through the prophetic and have a heavy discernment.
Right.
And so, yeah, thank you, sweetheart. Sierra.
My condolences on the loss of your father. And yeah, when we tune in, there's...
Oh, this is the thing I want to say about my dad. Okay, so when he passed, so I saw him in March, and I had this heaviness, right? And my cousin was here. She can vouch for me. And I said, I feel like somebody's pulling on me, like death is pulling on me, like something is pulling on me. And I struggle with suicidal ideations. I was like, is this trying to creep up on me again? What's going on? It was like really, and I had a hard time breathing. I could not breathe.
Mm-hmm.
I went through a panic attack and I just couldn't breathe. And that was on a Monday, and I just couldn't. I was just hyperventilating. What is going on? And then I got the call on Tuesday that my dad had passed away that Monday. And I said, how did he pass? He said he was having a hard time breathing. And I felt like my dad was passing by to me to say goodbye. Because I've had all of the symptoms that he was going through. And it was that whole day I had just going through every symptom he was going through. And I believe he was coming by me to say goodbye. Wow.
That's amazing. Did you feel the urge at any point in time to call him or anything like that?
No, because I hadn't talked to him. Sadly to say, my half sister who was caring for him pretty much blocked me off talking to him. So, yeah, that's why I say it's her own issues.
Yeah.
It was hurtful. She blocked me off from talking to him. I only got a chance to see him that one time, but that's why I believe my dad was coming by to at least tell me, his goodbyes or so. But yeah, I didn't get a chance, and I mean that's something she's going to have to live with. That she blocked me from at least still having that last relationship with him or so. That's something she's going to live with.
So that was your final opportunity?
Yeah, it was.
Wow. Well, God knows best, right?
Yeah, he knows best. And I did my part. I went out there to go see him. I got pictures with him. I did my part. But I was and I saw him before he transitioned.
You mentioned and you just brought up suicidal ideation. Second guess I'm hearing with that term, and I saw in your bio where you said you suffered from depression and other mental issues. What do you think was the cause of some of those issues that you suffered with?
Firstly, I believe in spiritual attacks, and it started from the trauma, womb trauma, the trauma in the womb. My mother using drugs and almost losing my life in her womb. And that's when spirit death entered into me. It exacerbated when you have a foster mother who constantly tells you you're dumb and stupid and you're getting beatings by her, you're getting beat by her. You're afraid to speak, you're afraid to do anything. Then I was, raped, molested in the other homes and stuff. And I just, it was just so much to where I just didn't think I was a mistake. I was like, well, that was a mistake. To even be born. All these adversities against me. And that's where the cause was. It started in my mother's womb. And it just kept escalating from there. Of the trauma I went through, the physical, verbal, emotional abuse.
Yeah. You before you were with the last foster home where you received love from your dad's family, you mentioned that you bounced around. Before that, you bounced around from home to home up until about the age of 5, right? Were you abused in those homes as well? Even at that tiny age?
I can remember. I had to have been about 4. And he would take me upstairs in his apartment house that was next door to the house I was living in a foster home. And he would just do his stuff to me, and I was like paralyzed, and he said, don't tell anybody or I'll hurt you. And it's like a baby. It's like 3-4 years old. And he did this repeatedly to me. And then boys would take me into a room and do their stuff. So that's why I'm a big proponent, advocate for, child abuse, and really just very protective when it comes to that.
And you were 4. This was happening between
I was like 4, 3. Maybe I was probably around 3 or 4. Honestly, I don't have a lot of memories from age 2 and up. That one I can remember. I don't have a lot of memories. It's like one day I was in a foster home and I woke up and I felt like I woke up from a dream. Like, how did I get here? But hearing the stories of my conditions, I can see why the Lord probably erased a lot of those memories away, because it wasn't good memories at all. And so I don't have a lot of memories about that.
Yeah, maybe for your own protection, right?
Right.
Again, I'm sorry to hear that you had to go through all of that. But the good thing is that you're here today and you're doing better and you're doing so much. What is one of the biggest lessons that you think you've learned so far, coming from your childhood to the point that you're at? What's one of the biggest lessons that you learned?
Well, my biggest lesson for me is the mission statement I have for my nonprofit, is to rewrite your story. See, studies show that a person like myself who ages out of foster care within 2 years will either be incarcerated or an addict. Well, I come from a whole long list of line of folks like that. And so for me, I did not want a statistic, person, people, anyone to tell me the rest of my story. The story was written already for me in heaven. And the enemy, of course, was angry. Anything of God's creation wanted to detour me or get me off. So by the things that were inflicted me in foster care and all of that, because God told us, He knows the plans that He has for us, the plans of hope for the future. So for me, it's rewriting my story, and I'm constantly rewriting it. I said I'm going to go to college. I'm going to get degrees, and I ended up getting 3 degrees when it was impossible. I didn't know how to read until 10, 11 years old. I was severely behind, and I don't believe in giving up. I'm going to find a way to get something done, but giving up is not an option for me. It's never been an option for me. One thing that my mentor, Dr. Vanessa Weatherspoon, who I love dearly, she's been my anchor. She said she just loved my fight. She said, you're such a fighter. And sometimes I'm like, I am. She said, you're a fighter. And sometimes I don't look at it, if somebody made a good analogy, it's like, you're the picture in the frame. You can't see the picture in the frame that what we see. And so she always says, you're a fighter. Just give up. And she's another smart person. She graduated from Spelman University in math and went off and got a master's degree in engineering and worked in corporate America. Amazing woman of God, prophet, Dr. Vanessa Weatherspoon. I love her to the moon and back. But yeah, she's been my anchor, held my hand ever since I was in my 20s and never let me go. And I don't mean, when I say hold my hand, I don't mean like she was coddling me, but she really guided me, corrected me, loved me, prayed for me, fasted for me. She's been that rock for me.
That's amazing. And something you mentioned was actually going to be my next question. I was going to ask you, are you an exception to the average person who is placed in foster care? That was going to be my next question.
I will have to say I am. Studies show only 3% of folks who graduate, age out of foster care attends college. 3%. 80% of inmates have been in foster care system. 80. And like I said, the crime they committed was not the first crime. The first crime was the trauma.
Yeah.
Marilyn Manson, the serial killer. He was in group homes. He was in foster care. You know, a lot of people. I had a woman on my show. I had a radio show last year. That girl was in foster care system. One trauma after next, raped by her stepfather, pregnant by her stepfather at age 13. Just one trauma after next. By age 16, she committed a double homicide. And so I am an exception to the rule. Why I host my Girls Teen Summit. Girls Teen Summit, Dreaming with Your Eyes Wide Open. Is my baby, is what I've given hope to other girls, paying it forward, where my mentor, Dr. Vanessa, gave to me and she instilled in me and she poured into me, and I'm paying it forward. And at the summit, we're talking about human sex trafficking awareness, domestic violence awareness, mental health, drug and alcohol awareness, college readiness, financial planning, career and entrepreneurship. Yes, and so that's what it is. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did answer my question, because you made it, because I was trying to find some data to find out what the percentage was for someone who was in the foster care system, and what the chances of success were for them coming out. So yes, you did answer my question, because I really needed to know that information so that I can say, okay, give me some perspective. So yes, you did answer the question. What impact do you want to make on the world? I know that you have several different things that you're a part of, but mostly you are there with young women who may be going through something similar to what you went through. But what impact do you want to make with that? Or anything else that you do for that matter?
Impact, I want them to share their stories and to pay it forward. Paying it forward is so important. I came out with my first book, published book, Cards of Life, Finding Your Winning Hand. And I collaborated with some of these amazing teen girls and young adult ladies who I had the privilege to mentor myself. But the impact I want them to make is the importance of paying it forward. It is vital. The things that I have helped you with and shared with you, there's going to be another teen girl that's going to need your assistance and your help, because you didn't do it by yourself. One of the girls who I mentored, and she was a hard case, oh God, since age 12. Her father was ready to put her in a group home. And she was just very angry, and she did not treat me too kind either in the beginning, and for the past 2 years. And then finally she opened up and said, oh, Miss Premadonna, the reason why I was mean to you or whatever, because I just want to make sure you're the real thing. I was like, really? I said, girl, check my zip code, 94601. You got to come harder than that. I've been through the fire and flames, and I am still standing my love. But, later as I've learned with her, she just went through a lot of just trauma with her stepmom, and just her mother, her biological mom not being present, and her dad being an alcoholic, and it's just a lot of things against her. And but I saw a lot of potential in her, and I said, hey, by 16, I saw her opportunity for her to go to a summer school, and she didn't want to do it. She wanted to hang out with her sisters, which was not a good idea, I thought, because her sisters had baby daddy drama, just the whole 9 yard. My whole thing is rewriting her story. I didn't want her to follow after that. And I convinced her dad to please let her fill this application and be gone for the whole summer, because this would be the best thing for her. And he finally agreed and allowed her to fill out the application. And to her surprise, not to me, because I knew she was going to get in, she got into Harvard University. It's a program for high school students where students from all over the world come and experience college for the whole summer. That exposure opened so many doors for her. Her eyes opened up, and she went off to college. She's a junior now in college, and she's an intern at Walton Foundation, which is part of Walmart. She's a business major, so she's traveled to New York and Chicago, and just from being in this internship, but it started with me pushing her to go to Harvard University for the exposure to start there. And yeah,
that's beautiful. I love that. That's amazing. So she has already begun to rewrite her own story. That's really beautiful. I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I really like that. That's really beautiful. If you could attend your own funeral, what would you like to hear people say about you?
Wow. She was selfless, very kind, giving, and will fast till the sun goes down. She would pray and fast, just selfless, giving, and really loved people. Unconditionally loved people. I don't think I've ever been that type of person that I have never been part of a crowd. I guess I consider still being, I'm a loner. I've never been part of a crowd. I don't know, because I just love all people. When I was in college, my roommate, she had cerebral palsy. And she was in a wheelchair, and there people were looking. I was a part of a sorority. My sorority is Delta Sigma Theta, and they were like, "That's your roommate?" I was like, "Yeah, it's my roommate. Mira, hello." And they were looking at me like, and they didn't say it, but I can see in their face like, you could have got someone else, but you ended up getting her. And I'm like, why not? She's human. She has feelings. And we had a ball and we had fun. She was in a wheelchair and she had a caregiver, and she couldn't do the things that I could do. But again, I don't like to be put in a box. I don't like cliques. I don't like, no one can honestly say that they've seen Premadonna in a clique. Even though I'm part of one of the largest sorority, there's times that people forget that I'm part of that sorority, because I just don't like to be put in a box or be part of a clique, because I never want anybody to feel like, because they see me with this group, that they feel like I'm not approachable. I always want people to feel like that I am approachable, because you see that when you see people part of a group or a elitist group or whatever group it is, it's like, yeah, I didn't think I could, you would want to talk to me, and nah, I'm not about that life. I'll talk to that person. I'll talk to the person on the streets. I'm just not about that life. So
I get that completely. That makes perfect sense. Do you have kids?
Yes, I foster.
Oh, you foster? You have no biological children?
No, I foster. Well, that has been like, I dealt with infertility, unexplained infertility. They don't know why I couldn't give birth. And a story behind that, I'm a storyteller. So that was a very dark time in my life, because I couldn't understand. I was like, God, first foster care system, and then there's just always something like a hurdle to jump over, and now unexplained infertility, like you couldn't understand it. And so as I shared with my book, Cards of Life, Finding Your Winning Hand, you can find it on Amazon. One of my girls here in the book, I was mentoring her at age 12, and I always made a purpose that any girls that I mentor, I will always ask them the question: are you okay? Do you feel safe? Do you feel like harming yourself? These are the questions I wish somebody would have asked me, because I was so very suicidal. And I always asked her that question. And her response would be like, I'm good. And the thing is, she would call me about 2-3 times a week, every week, 2-3 times a week. Miss Pre, can you pick me up? Can you pick me up? And I would ask her these questions. I'm good. And so when I read her story, and I was surprised to hear that she said she didn't want to exist and she just wanted to disappear. I'm like, well, hold up. And I asked her, I said, now listen, you called me 2-3 times a week and I always was there. Like, did I not ask you the right questions, or what happened? Help me. So the next person I work with, you know, they wouldn't feel the same way. Let me know what's going on. And she said, no, Miss Pre, you asked all the right questions. I said, then, you know, what was going on here? She said, well, when I would have those thoughts of taking my life and I didn't want to be there, I would call you and you always showed up. She said, because if you didn't show up, there wouldn't be a story. And it was at that moment, God said to me, I know you tried so hard to give life and you wanted to produce life, and I know that's what you wanted so bad. But I needed you to save lives. I needed you, my daughter, to save lives. And because of that, her life was saved, and she's now at Prairie View University on the dean's list, living her best life. And so that's my story behind that. I don't understand why things happen the way they do, but her life was saved. I don't know, having my own, I'll be so inundated with that. But God knew this young lady, and many other girls have come to me and said their lives were saved because I showed up, and they were suicidal, one after another, after another, after another, because of my program. I want to read something, you know, from my book, who I dedicated this to, and I encourage you guys to please get my book. But I dedicated this to Nadia Brianna Matthews, Phoebe Prince, and Amanda Todd. These beautiful teenage ladies tragically lost their lives to suicide. Although I didn't know them, I knew firsthand when I was a teen the feelings of abject loneliness and the sense of utter hopelessness. I only wish I had this anthology available to give to them, to tell them your life matters. Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what to say to that. I'm letting it soak in. Not what you read, but what the response that you got from that young lady who said she didn't want to exist. She said whenever she called for you, you responded, you showed up, and that's what kept her going. And that's amazing. We just need somebody to be there, somebody to listen, somebody to hear us. Even if they're not solving the issue, but they're there to say, you matter, so I'm showing up for you. And that's what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many foster children do you have?
I have two. I have my one son I adopted, and then I have two. And so I've fostered like probably over 20 kids throughout the years, over.
Wow, that's amazing.
So even if I adopt these, I'm still probably going to foster until the Lord tell me, okay, because there's a lot of kids who are in need of homes, and as long as, you know, I have the room, I'll continue to foster them. And I see my husband join. He probably figured it out. He's not too tech savvy. Hey, honey. But I will continue to foster as long as God allows us to.
Can you say what are some of the challenges that you, as a foster mother, as a foster family, what are some of the challenges that you've had to overcome in that position, seeing that these kids are coming with the trauma already there, the pain already there, the suicidal thoughts already there? How do you manage that?
What is the challenges I go through? That, I don't even know. You know, I'm just going to say it, that DHS don't know how to work with our kids. That's all. I just need to put it there. Like, the training and stuff that they have, it's not working for them. They're not teaching these kids to be sustainable, responsible, law-abiding citizens. Again, there's a reason why we have 80% of inmates in prison who's been in foster care, because they didn't really understand consequences. They really didn't understand that. And I don't coddle any of my kids that come through here, because I'm teaching them to be, yes, they've gone through their stuff, but a lot of that, some of it is manipulation. And if I let them think, for example, when you have your own birth kids, you're teaching them to be respectful. You're giving them discipline. You don't want to see them in jail. You don't want to see them being rude and stuff. And, I'm sure even in biological kids, they may have gone through stuff. Every family does. But at the end of the day, you're not going to allow them to use that as an excuse for the rest of their life. And so for me, the challenge is that I just feel like the system allows them to use this excuse for the rest of their life. Excuse is not going to get you a job. It's not going to help you hold down a job. It's not going to give you sustainable income. No, you're going to have to take responsibilities. And there was a kid we had in our home, and she was very challenging. She didn't stay in a place no more than 2 days or a week because she was violent until she met me. And we had a come to Jesus moment. And she lasted in my home, for a minute, for over 1.5 years. That was the longest. But when she started lying on my husband and saying things that just not true, I was like, okay, that's her livelihood. But as I told her, I am raising you to be a responsible adult. I'm sorry those things happened to you. Those things happened to me, but that's not going to help you be a sustainable, law-abiding citizen. I don't take that. I didn't take the crying. I didn't take none of that. And she will say things like, oh, you giving up on me? I said, no, you giving up on yourself. You giving up on yourself. That is not going to work with me. Get it together. Act right. Do what you're supposed to do at school. Stop making threats to these teachers. No, you giving up on yourself. So I'm more of a no nonsense, because I know what this world looks like, especially for kids of color. I ain't got time to be having them in Pampers for the rest of their lives. You're going to have to grow up, because this world is not nice. And of course, I love on them and everything, and I tell them that they're going to be great and stuff. But the challenging part is when they try to tell me how to parent them. I have caseworkers asking to bring kids to my home because the great job I'm doing. But yet y'all want to tell me how to parent my kids. And they're doing good. I mean, I have a 4-year-old right now who's very challenging. And the caseworker came in and said, couldn't believe how calm he was. He has a CASA worker too. They can't believe how calm he is. They're just like, so don't play that. He's 4 years old. If I don't teach him now at 4, by the time he's 14 years old, he's going to be like juvenile. No, we ain't got time for that. You're going to get some get right now. He says, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, sit your butt down. We ain't doing all that screaming and yelling. No, sir. Get it together. And so when he's with his other home, they couldn't even take him in public because he would scream. And the kids know, they know if they can get away with the stuff like that, but not with me. I don't play that. Yeah. So that's my biggest challenge.
It's interesting because even as adults, we do the same thing. We make excuses for what we've been through. This happened to me, and because this happened to me, I didn't do that, and this happened, and that. We do it as adults too. And nobody stops to say, okay, when do you take complete responsibility for your life? At what point you're going to say, okay, I didn't have this then, but now I'm an adult, or now I'm a teenager, and I know what's happening in the world, and I know if I go to school, I can get an education. At some point in time, you have to do that if you want to make it in the system. That's important. I like that. And I don't think it's just lacking in America. It's lacking everywhere, right? Because there's two sides, well, there are three sides. There's the side where they treat them like criminals, or they baby them, and then there's the side that you are implementing, which is showing them what life actually is like. And two sides, the other two sides are ineffective methods, because one makes them even more angry, and then the other one doesn't teach them anything. It makes them feel entitled.
Yeah, the entitlement. No, I don't do the entitlement. That doesn't work with me with the entitlement. I raise my kids to be very respectful. Like my 12-year-old, everybody loves my 12-year-old. They're always just like, he's so respectful, he's so kind, he's so this, and because I teach them that. You know, my dad taught me that, and I'm so appreciative. My dad who raised me, he also, you know, he's transitioned. I love that man because he really taught me and my sister about being respectful and appreciative, and I teach my son the same thing, and it makes me feel good to know that people notice that, and they always inviting my son over for play dates with their children because he's a really good kid. You know, of course he has his moments like any kid does, but I teach my children to be respectful and say yes ma'am, no sir, you know, yes sir, say thank you, be very polite. You know, manners are very important in my home. Manners, and we talk that way to our children too. I say yes sir, no sir. I talk like that to my children too. So I model that behavior because I want them to model the same behavior too.
Yeah. So, what do you think can be done to change that percentage from 3% to say maybe 5 and then 6 and then 7? Do you think that there's a way to get that done?
Well, the reason why it's like that is because the system is just broken. The foster care system is just broken. That's all. There's a whole long list to it. First is stop feeling sorry for them. That's my first thing. Because when they're feeling sorry for them, the kids feel entitled and they don't know corrections. Like, I remember I was on a support group and I almost fell off my chair. This boy is 14 years old, 15, and here's the foster parents. You know, we've just learned to give him choices. If he chooses not to eat dinner with us, we're just fine because his temper is so bad. And if he doesn't want to go to school, we don't force him to go to school because we can just get his work for him and make it easy, you know. Just, it keeps our home peaceful. And if he doesn't want to do chores, it's okay, you know. We just choose our battles. That's
my God, that kid is in charge.
That's why we got 3% attending college, and that's why we got 80% in prison, because foster kids in prison, because of that crap right there. You better not be in my house and tell me you don't want to go to school, and I'm giving you a choice. You ain't got no choice. No choice.
We give him a choice, and we pick our battles. Yeah, that is.
Instead of pick our battles, he don't have to go to school. We can just get his work for him. If he doesn't want to do it, and if he doesn't want to go to bed at the time we give him, that's fine. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Adult, he thinks there's really no rules because you guys have set it up like that. And then when the cops tell him you did this, and he mouthing off and talking crazy, and then they handcuff him and lock him up because you guys failed to show him rules because his trauma. Please, bye. I'm telling you, I had a girl. She came straight from the hospital. I should have known better then, but she came straight from the hospital. And that girl will fight every foster parent. She attacked and assaulted every foster parent. Every foster parent she had, she assaulted them. She fought them. She threw a shoe at my husband. She scratched my husband. She did all types of stuff to him the second day. And the caseworker told me asked me, well, did she do that to you? And I said, you want to know the truth? And she said, yeah. I said, she did that to me. We would have been both throwing shoes at each other because ain't nobody going to beat me up in my home. And then she always would put her fists up like she was going to hit me. I looked at her. I said, you better think real hard. Think about the choices you making. All right. And she never put her hands on me. Ever. Because I was told I could defend myself. But she understood you don't have the right to just put your hands on people and think you can just do whatever. That's not okay. But that's how they are teaching these kids in foster care why they're not getting adopted and they're aging out because they're so out of control. And that's why we have 3% of them attending college, because we're not teaching them real life skills. I'm very hardcore, Only thing I will have to say, I thank my foster mother about, she could have been a little bit nicer and she could have left all the verbal abuse and stuff. She would not allow me to feel sorry for myself. I will give her that much. That she would not allow me to be a victim. She pushed me in that sense. And I think that's where my fight come with, I always wanted to prove her wrong at the same time, but she wouldn't allow me to sit there and feel sorry for myself. She's like, girl, you better get up and what you gonna do? What you gonna do? So that's where I get that part of the fight. I will have to thank her for that part of my life. And that's what I do with my foster kids. I'm not teaching you guys to feel sorry and be a victim. We don't got time for that. Be responsible and be respectful.
I think being a victim and practicing a victim is one of the biggest crimes we commit against ourselves, because we put ourselves in a helpless place when we do that, when we practice being a victim. And there's a difference between someone making you a victim and then you adopting that behavior and then playing that role, and then you become helpless. So it's important. That's just a very good skill for people to have in general. And as I said, even adults still play that role as adults, and they live their whole lives that way. So
I've heard you say that twice. You've seen adults play themselves as victims. You've seen adults use that a lot.
They do. They're adults, I know for a fact, and you say certain things to them, and they'll be like, that's how I was growing up. I don't know any different. Stories like that. They'll say, this happened this way. Or, for example, why do you always behave a certain way? Right? Let me see if, I don't know if you can understand Jamaican patois, but the response you get is like something like, I saw my mother grow me, which is, that's how I was grown. So they have this behavior that they go around with. Maybe they quarrel with their kid's teacher, right? And you walk up to them and say, that's not okay, or that's not a correct way to go about that. And they'll say, that's how I was growing, right? This is what I know. And they'll say, and then you say, but that's not okay. And their response would be something like, I don't care, or it doesn't matter, or I don't give a rat's behind about anybody else. So people, and that's just a mild story, right?
So more culture inflicted, and that's why I come with my concept, my mission, rewrite your story. Mm-hmm. Because you hear that people become what their story gave them, their culture gave them, their family of origin gave them. They become and involve in that. But at the same time, it can be detrimental and it cannot, be helpful. And they come with that response, this is who I am. But how is that helping? Is this just breaking friendships? You're unable to keep a job, or it's just one thing after another. And that's why I'm the rewrite your story coach, because I rewrote my story, and I come from a line of drugs and alcohol and family who has anger issues. It's just different things,
different kinds of abuse.
Yeah, and my home is very quiet. I don't like noise, because when I would visit my birth mom, it was always noisy, and she was always yelling. It's like she didn't know how to talk. Everything was always octave. She didn't know how to just talk, and everything was just so loud, and I didn't like that, and cursing, and just Mm. So that's the rewrite your story. And then, sadly, my grandmother was a prostitute. My mom was a prostitute, and I had siblings. I had a sister who went off that road, and I went off to college, right? But let me tell you, although my sister was out there on the streets and and she was on the pole, I was able to rewrite the story because she saw what I was doing, and she'll never give me credit, but that's okay. It's all right, I'm fine with it because we know you got it. You were inspired by me, even though you would never give me credit. She took herself off the streets. She saw that I went to college. She went to college. She saw that I got 2 master's degrees. She went and got 2 master's degrees. My baby brother, he went off to college. And my niece is in college.
Breaking the cycle.
I broke that. You know how they said this runs to the family? I said, it ran its course with me. It ran its course. It stopped with me. It wasn't running anymore with me.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, she would never give me credit, but my sister, she is so freaking smart. She's smarter than me. I will always give her that. She's just naturally smart. Like, I would have to study forever, and she's naturally smart. She's naturally smart. Her and my other brother, naturally smart. But, so she's there, and I heard, she's going to try to do something else with herself, similar to what I'm doing. Again, she wouldn't give me credit, but hey, it's okay. I rewrote the story.
Yeah, you did.
And clearly it worked.
Someday you'll hear her say, I saw that Premadonna did it, my sister, and that made me see that I could do it too. One day she'll say that.
She may not ever, because she hates me. She's she has her own demons she's dealing with, but
yeah,
I still love her. I tell her I love her, and whatever. It's just a lot of that is imposed with my mother. Like, my mother has put a lot of poison and just different things. Like, and again, that's the generational stuff. My grandmother, had her kids against each other. I remember being at the house and my aunts were fighting each other because of stuff that my grandmother said. So, history repeats itself. But I still love my little sister. She's beautiful and smart as all out.
Yeah. Well, the bottom line is we can't give what we don't have. And what they have is what they're giving. What they learn is what they live. So until they get an epiphany or something, they're not going to realize that it's damaging, so that they can change that. So we live what we learn, right?
Right.
We live what we learn. My final question for you is, actually I have 2 more questions. You have your program where you mentor girls and so on. What are some of the other things that you're involved with?
As far as my nonprofit, or just other things outside of that?
In general, I want to know how many
I love acting. I've been in like commercials and independent films and a lot of theaters, and I was just in Nakarima Society. Oh, that play was so funny. And we won here it's called the Tate Awards here in Tulsa, and we won second runner up as the best adult production. And then I was in one of my sorority sisters' plays. She has her own theater company, Kelly. The Song of Jacob Zulu. Now, that was a good play. It's based on a true story of a young boy fighting against apartheid, and sadly lost his life. But I was in that one, and that's what I enjoy doing. I enjoy acting. My husband keeps saying, you need to do more with it. You need to do more with it. And I enjoy acting. I enjoy speaking on stages. I'm going to relaunch my podcast, hopefully by the end of this year. That's what I love doing. Acting is probably my love. I love that. It's just, it's hard. Of course, this industry is very hard to get into, but I really, really do enjoy acting, and prayerfully you'll see me on the big screens or so. I had a lot of people prophesy to me about it, so I said, let's make it work. Let's go.
Oh, yeah, and then I can say, I know a celebrity from Hollywood.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. And then my final question is, how do you maintain your? Well, this is a two-part question. So you foster several kids, and currently you have two living with you, and you have an adopted child, you have your family, you have all the other things that you have your hands in. How do you maintain your desired state of being, one, and two, where do you think the strength comes from to be that guiding light in those young people's lives so that you can create the change, like those, for example, those girls who've gone on to college? How do you think you manage that, or how do you manage that?
So how do I maintain with myself? Worship music. Gospel music has been a medicine to my soul. Like, I don't know. It's my medicine, it's my therapy, it's everything to me. Gospel music, worship music, reading my word, praying and fasting. That is how I've been able to manage my sound mind. Let this mind be in you as it is in Christ Jesus. All things are passed away, and behold, all things become new. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. The times that I was afraid when I was a little girl, my first scripture I learned, Psalms 56:3. The times I'm afraid, I will trust in thee. It has been my anchor, it's been my source, it's been my strength. That's how I'm able to mentor these young ladies. I seek my Father first. I go to the throne. I'm able to mentor them and the discernment that God has given me. They're surprised at the things that I know without them even saying anything. I said, you don't know, me and God are like this. We like this. The Holy Spirit, we like this. Okay. And, sometimes they try to run away from me. They're like, this pre-be, But that's how I'm able to maintain my sanity is Christ. And I remember growing up, and I literally stayed in church, but people have no idea. The devil was trying to take me out. I needed to be in somebody's sanctuary or safe place. So I stayed in church. And that's how I'm able to maintain. I love God's word. His word, it never go old. It's the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. So he leads me in everywhere I go. Trust. I like to say trust is spelled Time. The more time you have with God, the more you can trust him. The easier you can trust him. So trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not to thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. And he has directed my path. I've acknowledged him. And he has been that good to me, even when my darkest time. I thank God. That's my source. That's all I know. He's my oxygen. He's my first love. He's everything to me, even in my darkest time. Do I still yearn of always wanted to have my own child? Yeah. But God had given me that answer. I mean, he did tell me because he needed me to save these lives, but I've been prophesied to that, you're going to have your kids. And it's like, okay, am I going to be a Sarah? What's going on here? So I'm just enjoying the moment now. The kids I have a 6-month-old, a 4-year-old, and a 12-year-old. So I'm enjoying being a mother to those 3 precious souls.
That's amazing. Well, Premadonna, First Lady. Love the name, love what it means, love the story behind it. I want to say thank you so much for being here with me today. It was amazing. Love your story. Love where you're coming from, where you are now, and I know that your story will be an inspiration to anybody who sees it. So thanks again for being here, and thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for your support. If you're not following me yet, I am here every Thursday with a story like this or something to edify you. It's always about edification. It's always about growth. It's always about empowerment. So if you like what you see here today, I would love your support with the show, and I look forward to seeing you guys joining me next week. Oh, and Remember to pick up a copy of Premadonna's book, and this is my book. I am currently called An Introduction to Freedom, and I am currently giving away a chapter for free. All you have to do is send me a message in the DM. So the chapters it's about healing and working through the trauma and working through the disbelief and working through the stinking thinking. So chapter 1 is on gratitude, chapter 2 is forgiveness, chapter 3 is all about working through those things that you can't say to yourself when you're standing in the mirror, the fact that you can't smile at yourself and all of that. That's chapter 3. And then chapter 4 is about awareness. So if you'd like a chapter, just DM me and tell me which chapter would be of the most value to you, and I will send that to you. And with that said, again, I'm Sharita Swaby. This has been phenomenal. Thank you again, Premadonna, for being here with us. And I'll be back next week with someone else. So join me, tune in then, and have yourself a beautiful rest of week. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for having me.